They weren't kings with armies. They didn't seek fame or wealth, but they changed the world forever. From men swallowed by whales, to voices that split oceans, to a child who spoke from the cradle. These were the prophets of Allah, chosen not for power, but for purpose. In this video, we journey through the lives of 25 extraordinary men. Each one faced darkness. Each one carried light. You'll witness miracles, betrayal, patience, and divine justice, all in one epic story that spans centuries. This isn't just history, it's the story of truth, carried by the greatest souls who ever lived. Stay with us. The story begins now. He was the first of his kind. From clay, Allah shaped him, perfectly formed, molded by divine hands. Then Allah breathed into him his spirit, and Adam came to life. He opened his eyes in paradise. No hunger, no pain, no sorrow. He walked among rivers, trees, and light. And beside him was Hawa, his wife, created for peace and companionship. But then came the whisper, a creature full of pride, Iblis, who once stood among the ranks of angels, refused to bow to Adam. "I am better than him," he said, and so began his revenge. He tricked Adam, fooled him into eating from the one forbidden tree. Just one bite, and paradise vanished. Adam and Hawa were cast down to earth, not as punishment, but as part of a divine plan, a test, a mission. On earth, Adam became the first prophet, the first to receive revelation. He taught his children how to worship, how to live, how to return to Allah. He built tools with his hands, tilled the soil, raised a family, generation after generation. He watched one son kill another. He saw joy, he saw grief, and through it all, he cried, not just for what he lost, but for what the world would face. Adam lived for nearly 1,000 years. When his time came, the angels came gently. His eyes closed, his soul lifted. He left behind no gold, no monuments, but he left something greater, humanity. He was the first soul, the first teacher, the first to fall, and the first to be forgiven. And to this day, every child of earth carries a piece of him. This was Adam, the father of mankind, the first prophet of Allah. Between the time of Adam and Noah came a man unlike any other. His name was Idris, a prophet of truth, wisdom, and unmatched patience. Born in a world growing in sin, Idris walked with purity. He studied the stars, wrote with ink, and taught people how to sew their own clothes. He was the first to use a pen, the first to bring knowledge into a fading world. Allah chose him, not for his strength, but for his sincerity. He spoke little, but every word was truth. He warned his people, guided them, taught them justice. He called them back to Allah while the world drifted deeper into darkness. He fasted when no one else did. He worshipped when others forgot. And he rose through ranks of righteousness until even the angels marveled at him. One day he was taken on a journey, a divine ascension. Some say he passed through the skies. Some say he never returned. The Qu'ran says, "And we raised him to a high station," 1957. Idris didn't die in a normal way. He was honored, lifted, taken from earth in glory, not in grief. He left behind a legacy of knowledge, discipline, and silent strength. Though few remember his words, his impact echoes in every civilization that values writing, wisdom, and worship. This was Idris, the prophet of intellect, the man lifted by Allah, a soul honored in the heavens. He lived among his people for centuries, yet only a few listened. Noah, AIS, one of the greatest prophets, was chosen by Allah to guide a nation drowning in idols, arrogance, and sin. He wasn't born into royalty, he wasn't given weapons, but he was given something stronger, truth. For 950 years, Nu preached day and night, in the streets, in their homes, in secret, in public. He begged his people to turn to Allah, to abandon false gods, to repent before it was too late. But they mocked him, laughed in his face, covered their ears, called him mad. Still, he never stopped. Until one day Allah revealed the coming of a storm, not just of rain, but of judgment. Nu was ordered to build a ship in the middle of dry land. They laughed louder. A ship in the desert, they said, but Nu obeyed. He built the ark plank by plank, and when the sky darkened, when the earth burst with water, and when the waves rose like mountains, the laughter stopped. Only those who believed entered the ark. Even his own son turned away and was lost in the flood. The world was wiped clean. A new beginning. The ark settled on a mountain. Nu stepped onto dry land, not as a survivor, but as a symbol of patience, of unwavering faith. When he left the world, he left behind more than a story. He left a warning. This was Nuh, the preacher who never gave up, the prophet who faced a drowning world with a heart full of hope. They carved palaces into mountains, built towers that touched the skies. The tribe of Ad feared no one except their own pride. To them, Allah sent a prophet, Hud, a man from among them, not a stranger, not a foreigner, but one of their own. He walked with strength and spoke with truth. He warned his people, turn back, worship Allah alone, stop your arrogance, stop your oppression. But the people of Ad laughed. We are strong, they said. Who is stronger than us? Hud reminded them. Strength comes from Allah, and without him, they were nothing. Still they turned away, built taller towers, grew more arrogant. Their hearts became harder than stone. Hud stood firm even when he was mocked. I place my trust in Allah, he said. Do what you will. He is my Lord and yours. Then the skies changed. Dark clouds gathered. The people of Ad thought rain was coming, but it wasn't mercy, it was punishment. A wind, cold, fierce, and roaring like a beast, struck their land. Day after day, it tore through everything. Homes crumbled, bodies flew. The proud towers of Ad turned to dust. And when the silence returned, only Hud and the believers remained, saved by Allah's mercy. He lived the rest of his days in peace, a man who stood alone, yet never backed down. Hud didn't leave behind gold or cities. He left behind a lesson that arrogance leads to ruin, and truth always stands tall. This was Hud, the voice of warning to a forgotten empire, the prophet who faced the wind and stood firm. In the rocky valleys of Arabia lived a mighty nation, the people of Thamud. They carved homes into mountains, strong, wealthy, and skilled, but blind in heart. To them, Allah sent Saleh, a man of wisdom, honor, and truth, one of their own. He called them to worship Allah alone, to abandon the idols they made with their own hands. But they were stubborn. They demanded a miracle. So Allah gave them one. From a solid rock before their eyes emerged a living, breathing she-camel, a sign like no other. Saleh warned them, this camel is a test. Let her eat from the land. Do not harm her. But arrogance spoke louder than faith. They hamstrung the camel. They killed what Allah had sent. And then the ground trembled. A deafening quake struck Thamud. By morning, the once mighty city was silent. Every home empty, every idol shattered. Only Saleh and the believers survived, those who obeyed the warning. He walked among ruins, heartbroken, saying, O my people, I delivered the message of my Lord, but you did not love those who give advice. Saleh left behind no kingdom, but he left a lesson carved deeper than stone, that signs mean nothing to hearts filled with pride, and that when truth is rejected, destruction follows. This was Saleh, the prophet who brought a miracle from stone and watched a nation bury itself in arrogance. He lived among a people who had lost all shame. Prophet Lut, ALS, was sent to the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, lands poisoned with corruption, arrogance, and immoral behavior never seen before. He stood alone, calling his people to purity. "Fear Allah," he said. "Return to natural order. Turn away from sin." But they laughed at him, mocked his faith, threatened to drive him out of the city. Even his own wife betrayed him, a supporter of the wicked, though she lived under the roof of a prophet. Still, Lut remained patient. He warned them again and again, but they only grew bolder. Then, one night, angels came in human form. Guests in Lut's home. The city's wicked men gathered outside, demanding to commit evil against them. That night, the command of Allah arrived. The angels revealed themselves and said, "O Lut, leave with your family before dawn. Do not look back." As the sun began to rise, Allah's punishment descended. The ground shook. The skies rained stones. The cities were lifted and flipped upside down. And when silence returned, nothing remained but ruins. Only Lut and a few believers were saved, walking away while his wife was left behind with the rest. He left the world as a man of honor, a man who stood for truth in a time of shamelessness. This was Lut, a prophet who faced a flood of sin and walked away with dignity, guided by Allah. He was born into a land of idol worship, where stone statues were gods and kings claimed divinity. But even as a child, Ibrahim, AS, questioned everything. "Why do you worship what cannot speak?" he asked. "Why bow to what you carved with your hands?" He searched the skies, the stars, the sun, but found truth only in the Creator of all things. Allah chose him, guided him, made him a prophet. Ibrahim challenged his people. He broke their idols, all but one, and told them to ask the last one what happened. They were furious. Their punishment? Fire. They built a massive pit, filled it with flames so great birds couldn't fly over it. They threw Ibrahim in. But Allah said, "O fire, be cool and safe for Ibrahim." He emerged untouched, not by smoke, not by flame. His journey didn't end there. He left his homeland. He faced tyrants. He was tested again and again, and each time he submitted. The greatest test? His own son. In a dream, Allah told him to sacrifice the child he had long prayed for. With a trembling heart, he prepared to do so, but Allah replaced the boy with a ram. It was a test of obedience, and Ibrahim passed. Later, he and his son, Ismail, raised the walls of the Kaaba, the sacred house in Mecca. He was honored with the title Khalilullah, the friend of Allah. And when he left the world, his name echoed across time. This was Ibrahim, the man who stood alone against falsehood, who walked through fire for truth, who became a nation by himself. He was the answer to a long, tearful prayer. Ismail, Ikanchoasan, son of Ibrahim, was born in the desert, far from cities and kingdoms. As a baby, he cried beneath the scorching sun when his mother Hajar ran between two hills, searching for water. Allah answered her faith with Zamzam, a spring that flows to this day. Ismail grew into a boy of strength, patience, and quiet submission. In a barren land, he helped his mother. He learned early what it meant to trust in Allah. Then came the test. His father, Ibrahim, had a dream, not once but again and again, to sacrifice his own son. Ismail listened carefully. He didn't run. He didn't cry. He said, "Father, do what you are commanded. You'll find me patient if Allah wills." As the knife touched his neck, Allah called out, "You have fulfilled the vision." A ram was sent down from heaven. Ismail was spared. It was a test of faith, and Ismail passed without hesitation. Years later, father and son stood side by side, rebuilding the sacred Kaaba. Brick by brick, they raised its walls, saying, "Our Lord, accept this from us." Ismail became a prophet to the people of Arabia. He taught prayer, charity, and submission to Allah. He lived with honor, and he left the world with peace, his legacy built into the foundations of Islam. This was Ismail, the son who obeyed, the builder of the house, a prophet whose patience shook the heavens. He came as a miracle, a gift in old age. Ishaq, A.S., was the second son of Ibrahim, A.S., born to Sarah when both parents were far beyond the age of childbearing. But nothing is impossible for Allah. The angels brought the news saying, "We give you glad tidings of a knowledgeable boy." And so Ishaq was born, a child of light, a prophet in waiting. From a young age, he was surrounded by truth. His father was the friend of Allah. His older brother Ismail, a model of obedience. Ishaq grew up in a house filled with prayer, sacrifice, and divine trust. Allah later made him a prophet, continuing the mission of his father. He taught the people about tawheed, justice, and good character. He called them away from idol worship and reminded them of the covenant made with their Creator. He was known for his gentleness, his wisdom, and his strong sense of righteousness. Through him, Allah extended the chain of prophets. His son Yaqub, Az, would follow in his path. And from Yaqub came a lineage of noble prophets, including Yusuf, Musa, Harun, Dawood, and Isa. When his time came, Ishaq returned to his Lord in peace, a life fulfilled, a message delivered. He didn't rule kingdoms or fight battles, but he stood as a pillar of prophetic continuity. This was Ishaq, a prophet born of a miracle, the father of nations, and a light passed down through generations. He was born into prophecy, grandson of Ibrahim, son of Ishaq. From childhood, Yaqub, I.S., carried the torch of Tawheed, guiding tribes with kindness and truth. He married and built a large family, 12 sons who would one day form the tribes of Israel. In nightly gatherings, he reminded them, "Serve Allah alone and never die except as Muslims." That was his mission, to keep the covenant pure and living across generations. But the greatest test of his life came from within his own home. His beloved son Yusuf vanished. A blood-stained shirt and jealous whispers were all that remained. Years stretched into decades. Yaqub's eyes turned white with grief, yet his heart never abandoned hope. He whispered, "I only complain of my sorrow to Allah," teaching the world that patience is not silence, but trust. When Yusuf rose to power in Egypt, the family was reunited. Yaqub fell in prostration, praising the Lord who never forgets his servants. Satisfied, the prophet gathered his sons and renewed the pledge to worship Allah after him. He passed away in peace, buried beside his fathers in Hebron. This was Yaqub, a father of nations and the embodiment of patient faith. As a boy, Yusuf, a tyrants, saw a dream, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing to him. His father, Yaqub, knew it was a sign of greatness, but greatness came through pain. Out of jealousy, his brothers threw him into a well. A caravan found him and sold him into slavery in Egypt. There he grew in wisdom and beauty, but when he refused the advances of a powerful woman, he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. Even in chains, Yusuf taught truth. He interpreted dreams and reminded inmates to worship Allah alone. His gift eventually reached the king, who sought his counsel. Yusuf rose from prisoner to minister, overseeing Egypt's grain during a great famine. Then came the moment of destiny. His brothers, unaware of who he was, came begging for food. He could have punished them, but instead he forgave. "No blame upon you today," he said. He was reunited with his father. The dream came true. The sun, moon, and stars all bowed before him in love and honor. Yusuf left this world as a prophet, a ruler, and a symbol of resilience, forgiveness, and divine purpose. This was Yusuf, from the depths of a well to the heights of honor. He walked into a marketplace filled with lies. Shu'aib, A.S., was sent to the people of Madian, a wealthy nation known for their business. But their wealth was stained with dishonesty. They cheated in trade, used false measures, and robbed the poor with smiling faces. Shu'aib, a man of deep character and sharp wisdom, stood among them and said, "Give full measure. Do not defraud. Do not spread corruption." He warned them, wealth gained through injustice will lead only to ruin. He called them back to Allah, to worship Him alone and live with fairness. But they mocked Him. "Your prayers," they sneered, "tell us how to trade." They threatened to stone Him, to drive Him out. But Shu'aib didn't back down. His voice remained steady, his faith unwavering. And when the last warning was ignored, Allah's punishment arrived. A mighty quake struck Madian. The earth roared, buildings crumbled, and by morning, every cheater, every mocker, every denier was gone. Only Shu'aib and the believers were saved. He turned away from the ruins with a heavy heart and said, "O my people, I conveyed the message of my Lord." He left behind no kingdom, only a message echoing through time, that faith without justice is hollow, and trade without honesty leads to destruction. This he was Shu'aib, the prophet who stood in the marketplace and reminded a nation, Allah sees every weight, every scale, every soul. He had everything: wealth, land, a loving family. But Ayub, A.S., was known not for what he had, but for how he responded when it was all taken away. Allah tested him. One by one, his children passed away. His farms dried up. His body was struck with a painful disease. His friends left him. His people abandoned him. Only his faithful wife remained, feeding him, comforting him, praying with him. Years passed. Still, Ayub never complained, never questioned. He said, "Indeed, hardship has touched me, and you are the most merciful." That was his legacy: patience in silence, faith without blame. When his wife's strength began to fade, Ayub finally turned fully to Allah, not with anger, but with deep trust. Allah answered. He was told to strike the ground with his foot. A spring of water burst forth. Ayub washed and was healed. His youth returned, his wealth came back, his children were restored, double in number, not because he demanded it, but because he endured. Ayub, Ranas, left the world not as a man broken by trials, but as a man raised by them, a symbol for every soul who suffers in silence. This was Ayub, the prophet of patience, the man who lost everything, but never lost Allah. And in the end, he proved, those closest to Allah are often tested the most, but they rise higher with every tear they never shed in complaint. His story is brief, but his legacy speaks volumes. Dhul-Kifl, A.S., is one of the prophets mentioned in the Qu'ran, described with three powerful words: patient, righteous, and steadfast. He lived in a time when corruption and injustice filled the land. The people needed a leader, someone who would uphold truth and judge fairly. Many were offered the position, but none could promise to carry its burden, except one. A young man stood up and said, "I will take it. I will fast by day, pray by night, and never lose patience." That man was Dhul-Kifl. He became a beacon of justice, a calm voice in chaos. He settled disputes, led his people in worship, and remained firm, even when tested. His name means the one with responsibility, and he never ran from it. Though details of his life are hidden, Allah honored him in the Quran alongside Ayub and Ismail, saying, "They were of the patient, and we admitted them into our mercy." Dhul-Kifl, A.S., may not have a long story, but his silence speaks of quiet greatness. This was Dhul-Kifl, a prophet of responsibility, a man who proved that true leadership begins with patience and ends with mercy. In the heart of Egypt, a tyrant ruled. Pharaoh, who claimed to be God and ordered the death of every newborn Israelite boy. But Allah had a plan. A baby was placed in a basket, set adrift in the Nile by his mother's trembling hands, and carried by the water to Pharaoh's own palace. That child was Musa, A.S. He was raised in the home of the very man who sought his death. As he grew, so did his strength and his sense of justice. One day he struck a man who was oppressing another and fled Egypt in exile. In the wilderness, Musa found peace, a wife, a new life. But then, a fire appeared on the mountain. There Allah spoke to him, "I have chosen you. Go to Pharaoh, speak the truth." Armed with his staff and his brother Harun, Musa returned. He challenged the tyrant, faced magicians, performed miracles. His staff turned into a snake. His hand glowed with light. But Pharaoh remained arrogant. Allah sent plagues, blood, frogs, lice, darkness. Yet the people still refused. Finally, Musa led the Israelites out. At night, toward the sea. Pharaoh chased them, and Allah split the sea. The water stood like walls. Musa and his people crossed safely. Pharaoh and his army drowned. Musa was given the Torah, a law, a light for his people. But even then, they tested him, doubted him, betrayed the covenant. Still, Musa stood firm. He died in the desert, never entering the promised land, but honored above many others. This was Musa, the one who spoke to Allah, the prophet of freedom, the man who turned a stick into a sign and led a nation through a sea. He was gentle in voice, but firm in truth, a prophet chosen not for power, but for patience. Harun, X, was the brother of Musa, Ace, a companion in the mission to face Pharaoh and free the children of Israel. When Allah commanded Musa to go to Pharaoh, Musa asked, "O Allah, strengthen me with Harun, my brother. He is more eloquent in speech." Allah accepted. Harun was made a prophet, a partner in truth, a voice of calm beside Musa's fire. Together they stood before the tyrant. Together they challenged disbelief. When the Israelites were freed and Musa ascended Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, he left Harun in charge. Harun was entrusted to guide the people, to preserve worship and protect the truth. But in his absence, the people faltered. They built a golden calf and began to worship it. Harun warned them. He pleaded, but he never used force. He feared division among the people and waited for Musa's return. When Musa came down and found what had happened, he was furious. But Harun stood with dignity and explained everything. Harun, ARS, lived as a teacher, a leader, and a servant of Allah. He passed away before Musa, and his death was deeply mourned by the Israelites. This was Harun, a prophet of patience and speech, the brother who stood beside a prophet and carried truth with calm strength and unshakable loyalty. He was young, just a boy, but with a heart full of faith. Dawood, AAS, first rose to fame when he faced the giant warrior Jalut, named Goliath, feared by all. While soldiers trembled, Dawood stepped forward with nothing but a sling and the name of Allah on his lips. The stone flew, and the giant fell. That moment changed everything. Dawood was chosen by Allah, not just as a warrior, but as a prophet and a king. He ruled the children of Israel with wisdom, justice, and deep humility. He was given a book, the Zabur, Psalms, filled with beautiful praise and divine wisdom. When Dawood recited, even the birds paused in flight, and the mountains echoed his voice. His worship was pure. His repentance was sincere. He was also gifted with strength. He shaped iron with his hands, crafting armor and tools. But his greatest strength was in judgment. He always listened, always prayed, always chose justice over desire. Once, two men appeared before him, arguing over sheep. In a moment of anger, he judged too quickly. Realizing his mistake, Dawood fell into prostration, asking Allah for forgiveness, and Allah forgave him. Dawood's reign became a symbol, not of power, but of righteousness. He left the world as a king beloved by his people and a prophet honored by Allah. This was Dawood, the giant slayer, the singer of praises, the king who ruled hearts, not by sword but by justice and remembrance of his Lord. He was the son of a prophet, and inherited more than just a crown. Suleiman, Elias, son of Dawood, was gifted by Allah with wisdom, knowledge, and a kingdom unlike any other. He ruled not only over humans, but jinn, animals, and even the wind, all by Allah's permission. His justice was unmatched. His intelligence, legendary. He could understand the language of the birds. One day he heard an ant warn its colony, "Hide lest Suleiman's army crush you." He smiled, grateful to Allah for such a gift. His army moved in perfect order, men, jinn, and animals, following a leader who feared Allah above all. One of his most famous moments came when the hoopoe bird returned with news of a distant kingdom ruled by a woman, Queen Bilqis of Sheba. She and her people worshipped the sun. Suleiman didn't seek war. He sent a letter, an invitation to truth. Through wisdom and miracles, he brought her to Islam, and her entire kingdom followed. Suleiman built structures of wonder. He could summon the jinn to build palaces, mine treasures, and dive deep into the oceans. Yet with all that power, he remained humble. He knew everything he had was from Allah. When he passed away, he was leaning on his staff. The jinn didn't realize he had died until a worm ate through the wood and his body collapsed. This was Suleiman, a king like no other, a prophet who ruled worlds, but bowed only to the one above the heavens. In a land overtaken by idols and pride, one man stood alone with the truth. Elias, Ars, was sent by Allah to a people who worshipped a false god called Baal, carved by their own hands yet feared like a deity. He called out to them with clarity and strength, "Will you worship Baal and leave the best of creators? Allah is your Lord, the Lord of your fathers, the Lord of all worlds." But they laughed, rejected him, mocked his message. Still, Elias did not stop. He lived a life of deep worship, fasting, praying, remembering Allah in every moment. His heart beat only for his Creator. And though the people turned away, he continued calling them back to truth, back to purity, back to the one who created them. Allah honored him for his patience, for his righteousness, for standing firm when the world turned its back. Some scholars say he was raised up like Idris, taken to the heavens. Others say he continued his mission until the very end. What's certain is his devotion. This was Elias, the prophet who stood against falsehood, who reminded a people lost in idols that real power belongs only to Allah. And though many forgot him, Allah never did. His name remains honored forever in the Quran. He followed the path of a noble prophet and carried his light forward. Al-Yasa, Aos, was the chosen successor of Elias, Aos, a man raised to continue the mission of guiding a people lost in idol worship and worldly pride. He was not loud. He was not feared by kings, but his presence carried calm authority. With wisdom, patience, and deep sincerity, Al-Yasa taught his people to return to Allah alone. He walked in the footsteps of his teacher, calling to righteousness, warning against corruption, and leading with mercy. Though little is recorded about his life, the Quran honors him alongside the greatest prophets, describing him as one of the excellent in deeds. He lived a quiet life of piety, far from fame or power, yet his faith shook the hearts of those who listened. His mission wasn't about miracles or battles. It was about staying true to the truth when others forgot it. He fulfilled his duty with grace, and when his time ended, he left behind a legacy of silent strength. This was Al-Yasa, the prophet who carried a light in the shadows, who continued the call of truth, and proved that even in forgotten pages, greatness lives on through sincerity. He was chosen by Allah to guide a stubborn people, a nation that mocked truth and turned away from guidance. Yunus, AS, warned them again and again, but they rejected him, so he left. Without Allah's permission, he turned his back and walked away. A prophet, but still human, overcome with frustration, he boarded a ship, But the sea grew wild, storms crashed, waves roared. To save the vessel, the crew cast lots, and Yunus's name was chosen. He was thrown into the dark sea and swallowed by a giant fish. There, in the belly of darkness, the sea, the fish, the night, Yunus found light in repentance. He cried out, "There is no God but you. Glory be to you. I was among the wrongdoers." Allah heard him. The fish swam to the shore and released him. Weak, sick, but forgiven, Yunus returned to his people. But this time, they believed. They saw his return as a sign. They turned to Allah, and Allah, in his mercy, accepted them. Yunus lived the rest of his life in peace, among a nation that once rejected him, now filled with faith. He was not remembered for his mistake, but for his repentance. This was Yunus, the prophet who fled and found forgiveness. The man who was swallowed by a whale, but lifted by the mercy of Allah. He was a quiet man, devout, humble, and full of light. Zachariah, A.S., was a righteous prophet, chosen to guide his people with wisdom and care. He served in the sacred temple and took on the guardianship of a special child, Maryam, S., the mother of Isa. He watched over her, protected her, taught her about Allah, and every time he visited her, he found provisions, food from nowhere. He asked, "Where is this from?" She replied, "It is from Allah. He provides without limit." Those words struck his heart. Zachariah was old. His wife was barren, but he longed for a child, not for pride, but to carry on the message of truth. So he turned to Allah in the darkness of prayer and whispered, "My bones are weak, my hair is white, but never have I lost hope in you." And Allah answered. He gave Zachariah a son, Yahya, Ace, pure, noble, and beloved, a prophet from birth, a mercy in human form. Zachariah's joy did not last forever. He lived in a time of corruption and was eventually martyred, killed by those who hated truth. But his name lives on in honor. He left behind not only a son, but a legacy of hope, humility, and unwavering faith. This was Zachariah, the prophet who prayed when all odds were against him, and was answered by the Lord who never fails. He was born from a miracle, a gift to an old father who never gave up hope. Yahya, A.S., known as John the Baptist, was the son of Zachariah and a prophet from the moment he entered the world. Even as a child, Yahya was different, pure in heart, gentle in voice, wise beyond his years. Allah said about him, "We gave him wisdom while still a boy, in compassion and purity, and he was righteous. He never chased comfort. He wore rough clothes, lived simply, spoke only truth, and wherever he walked, people felt the presence of a soul deeply connected to Allah." Yahya preached to the people with tenderness. He called for repentance, for justice, for moral purity. He stood against powerful rulers who lived in sin and spread corruption. But truth comes with a price. When a tyrant sought to marry unlawfully, Yahya stood up. He said no, loud, clear, fearless, and for that, he was martyred. His life taken, but his voice never silenced. He died young, but he died pure, with a heart that never bent and a mission that never faded. Even the Prophet Muhammad said, "No one was more humble before Allah than Yahya, the son of Zachariah." This was Yahya, the boy prophet, the fearless voice of righteousness, a soul whose light still shines in the pages of the Qu'ran. She was alone, in pain, and far from any soul, and from her came a miracle. Isa, A.S., known as Jesus, was born to Maryam, A.S., without a father. By Allah's command, he came into the world pure, powerful, and full of purpose. As a newborn, he spoke from the cradle, defending his mother and declaring, "I am the servant of Allah. He gave me the book and made me a prophet." Isa was not divine. He was a messenger sent to the children of Israel with clear signs and deep compassion. By Allah's permission, he healed the blind, cured lepers, and raised the dead. He breathed life into clay birds. He knew what people hid in their homes. But with every miracle, he reminded them, I do this by the will of Allah. He called them to Tawheed, to worship Allah alone, and confirm the Torah that came before him. But pride and politics blinded the people. Some believed, many rejected. The leaders plotted to kill him. They thought they succeeded. But Allah said, they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. It only appeared so. Instead, Allah raised Isa to the heavens, alive, protected, and honored. He will return before the end of time, to break falsehood, restore truth, and lead the believers once again. He left behind no wealth, but he left a legacy of mercy, sacrifice, and unwavering truth. This was Isa, the word of Allah, born without sin, a prophet who walked on earth and will one day return to complete his mission. He was born an orphan, yet destined to change the world. Muhammad, the final messenger, was born in Makkah into a society filled with idols, injustice, and ignorance. From a young age, he was known as Al-Amin, the trustworthy. He lived with honesty, kindness, and deep reflection. Often he would retreat to a cave, searching for truth. At age 40, truth came to him. In the stillness of the cave, Angel Jibril appeared and said, Read, in the name of your Lord who created. From that moment, the Qu'ran began to descend, word by word, verse by verse, over 23 years, a divine message for all of humanity. He called people to Tawheed, to worship Allah alone, to free the oppressed, to care for orphans, to honor women, to live with purpose and mercy. But the people of Makkah turned against him. They insulted him, beat him, boycotted him, plotted to kill him. Still, he remained patient. He migrated to Medina, built a community, and led with justice. Tribe by tribe, heart by heart, Islam spread, not by sword, but by truth. He returned to Makkah, not with vengeance, but with forgiveness. By the time he left this world, Arabia had united under Islam. But his mission wasn't for one land. It was for all people, for all time. He left behind no palace, no gold, but he left the Quran, the Sunnah, and the greatest example of character. This was Muhammad, the seal of the prophets, the mercy to the worlds, the man who lived for others and whose light still guides the hearts of millions.